Welcome to The Grant, the EU funding podcast. The Grant. My name is Niels Tudor Winter, and I'm the creator, editor, and host of The Grant. The Grant is an independent podcast initiative with the ambition to dig into all corners of the EU R&D funding system on topics of interest for the full EU R&D funding community. Implementation is where projects live or die. We've all been in consortium meetings that slide from kick-off euphoria into silent struggle. Slide marathons, unclear roles, and thin decisions. It is time for another episode in my implementation series, and in this episode I zoom in on the social architecture of delivery, how to design rhythms, roles and rules so a set of entities becomes a team, and how to make kickoffs and meetings truly collaborative. Organizational consultant Monica Expositor-Glasco, and collaborative architect as she calls herself, joins me in the virtual podcast studio to unpack practical tools. Phase kickoffs, interactive formats, and a light team playbook that sets communication norms and decision paths. It became a long talk, so I split it into 2 episodes. In this second half, we look ahead to why collaboration will be the real competitive advantage in proposals and get hands-on with the tools that prove it works in practice. Phased kickoffs, lightweight team playbooks, cross-work package speed dating, decision logs, and speak-up rituals, plus the psychology behind why these formats actually deliver. Please enjoy. The Grant. Let's move on to the next block on the future. Collaboration as a competitive advantage. So you have put here projects become more complex, AI tools and so on. So can you unfold?
So I'm seeing, obviously I come from this edge, but I'm seeing really that collaboration, the way we work together, is really the competitive advantage. You know, everyone is now currently super focused on how AI is going to revolutionize proposal writing, for example. Yeah, and they're right. Yeah, if I think of the context of EU funding, yeah, and EU projects. So tools like ChatGPT are becoming standard, or other AI tools for creating efficient and well-structured proposals when you know how to use them, when you know what to ask, when you know your topic, obviously. And there will be at the beginning many that will do trap proposals for sure, but this will be perfection now with time. But this leads to, for me, for a fascinating and crucial next question. So when everyone can write, or many can write, a near perfect proposal with the help of AI, obviously proposing a good, good idea, a good plan, yeah, what becomes the new competitive advantage? So for me, the advantage shifts from what you promise on paper to what you can prove you can deliver in reality.
Yeah, it's at least one of them. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, this is connected to the social element and how we work together now, and how the architecture of collaboration. So if the focus, I think for me, and you'll tell me if you have broad experience now in this field, but I guess the focus of evaluators will inevitably move from towards the consortium track record, and it's how they demonstrate their ability to function as a high-performing team or collective. So then, for me, the neo-winning argument won't be we have a great plan, but we have a great team. We have proven that we can execute complex plans, that we can gather people together, entities together, and have exceptional collaboration. So your repetition for turning plans into real, basically, and measurable impact through a cohesive, well-run consortium will become, I think, the most valuable asset for securing future funding for those that obviously we need the funding if you're involved in this field. Yeah. or have your entities very often involved in doing this type of projects. So for me, in this new area, the soft stuff, the social element, that the architecture of collaboration becomes the hardest and the most critical differentiator of all. And this is what I'm seeing. Yeah, this is where I see the competitive advantage. How do you see that, Niels, yourself?
So the thing is, right now the AI maybe tends to be a little bit overrated. What is happening is that the good ones, the ones that can really use AI properly and not just use it as cutting corners, makes the proposals better, but not all proposals. Not everybody is able actually to use AI properly, and then you can obviously see if it's been used in the preparation process. But indeed, the competitiveness, but that has been over years anyways, the tendency, because of the competitiveness for the funding has been raised. People that, like the capacities from both private consultants as also proposal preparers from public, whatever universities, are becoming better in preparing them. So indeed, it's on the margins that you can win. And it's not only this that you mentioned here. It's definitely part of it. You can see that there's a partnership or a group of organizations that know how to work together, have done it before. That's one part. But another corner is that you're on the margins on how you approach gender in your work, how you not just the standard dissemination plan, that you actually do something with it that is original. So it's on these margins where, say, you have two proposals with points 15 top grades, and then they would start looking into these things. So these things like this we're talking about today, like a very innovative or very creative ways of doing and securing the connection in between the consortium throughout the work, to secure that when plan B and plan C has been carried out, then people are tightly knit together with this approach, meaning that there's a bigger chance that they will carry through when problems hit. Yeah. So these things, indeed. So you're right. It's these things, the margin, what you would consider margins for you, of course, it's core work, but what would be considered from an objective point of view from evaluator on the fringe of what they would focus on, they become more important. So yes.
Yeah. I mean, even that brings me back to one other thought is probably a role like mine, comes when the project. People will think it comes when the project starts, right? When it has been funded, and then we have the official start, or a few weeks before. But ideally, at least this thinking process and a bit testing. Now, what are the grounds that we're standing on, and why we're doing this project together? This should start already in the proposal phase. And if not, definitely in the, how you call it, the gap now, the grant agreement phase 2. Because there is testing a bit also what you were saying. Now, do we have a partner that is going to bring a different way of doing communication dissemination, and how they want to be creative? What are the stakes for them or for other partners? This, ideally, starts earlier. Now, doesn't have to be pushed, let's say, just a few weeks before having the kickoff meeting. This is a process that, if you see this now as a competitive advantage, you already have elements of this, a bit of this work and this point of view of how we are creating this consortium, this potential consortium. You have it before. And it's helping also for precisely when you're going to write that proposal, do it with the AI or not, super well written. But what you're picking to present as the differentiator and what should bring confidence, you're testing that already a bit earlier. And you will transmit that in what you write. Yeah. But if you don't have a bit the connecting and the depth of it, it's more difficult also to transmit this in the proposal, for example, or refining the grant agreement phase.
Yeah, and of course, Nicole and Georg, they can very well now integrate these kind of things in the proposal now because they've been working with you and doing it before, so it becomes more natural. So.
Definitely. We've spent a few sessions really reflecting and looking just through the example of this kickoff project, for example, and inevitably, it took all of us going to this start to the proposal writing, how they engage the first core, how they're picking other partners, what can be fixed, what should be changed, already start to think and question things and how to connect with others. So they're super interesting. I think it's going to become at the end, it's more a reputation economy now that's going to evolve from this. So the best partners will join consortium known for their collaborative culture, because it means efficiency, enjoyment, and achieving great things together. And this starts already, if it's possible, time-wise, whatever, the earlier, the better. And do it, in just, dosage, yeah? That makes sense.
I'm Thomas Brent, and you should definitely listen to The Grant because it is the best podcast on European funding. Listen to it, give it a 5-star rating, go.
Amen. Now time is flying, and we still have 2-3 sections left. So I will be moving into the practical tools. So, but it's actually maybe we can also combine that tools, advice, and reflection. So practical tools. So what do you do?
A lot of things. So in New America, that's my consultancy. So we draw from organizational consulting, leadership consulting, but let's say our differentiator is we have sources we get from sources that have to do with how people collaborate better, how they participate. So participative leadership, self-organization. So there's a lot of pioneers and practices and systems and techniques that allow people to be more involved and really participate and take ownership. Because let's say the worldview that we share of work, usually it's a bit more of, there has to be the boss, there has to be the team leader, he or she has to be making the decisions, the rest are executing some tasks. So there's these pictures of how work runs. And the thing is, actually, there's other possibilities. It's just that we don't know them. So this is, in general terms, called new work. There's a lot of different trends. There's agility, there's self-organization, there's teal organizations, and just I'm throwing a few names so for people if they want to research. And I bring some of the techniques, some of the practice, adapted also of how do you do group facilitation work and so on, and bring it depending on what we want to achieve. Try some things. An example. So let's think of, for collaboration, usually if we think of the typical approach of a meeting kickoff, I know we said it's long monolithic sessions. Maybe it's a theater style room agenda with a series of presentations, death by PowerPoint with limited some questions. Yeah, maybe there's even some questions. Great. And the primary mode is passive information reception, right? So, hey, a better practice that I was already, explaining in a very abstract way. So let's move into more a dynamic workshop, dynamic session agenda model. And then we want a dynamic. What are techniques? We can have a marketplace. We can have gallery work sessions. So in the case of Daniel Lifelines, they have different demonstration sites, to allow, they want to see how they restore migration of fish, the roots and the habitats across 11 countries. They have 8 demonstration sites. Some people know about the specific demo sites, others have no idea. Hey, let's do a gallery walk. Let's have some posters, have people presenting, having people moving around in groups, mixed groups, and asking, let's spend some time understanding and people creating some stations outside of the theater style room and move freely or in groups and have some times and some, let's say, some homework, some tasks to do, some tasks to complete. Fosters dialogue over monologue, and we have movement, and we have different groups built of people that haven't spoken to each other much yet, because it was one of the rules. For example, another technique, we can have word package speed dating that I was saying. So we've been very much into the solving some questions that we have, a lot of brain power, crossword package, collaboration, how we want to do this. So very much brain power. And then we cut and say, hey, 10 minutes. Let's discuss 3 critical questions. What do I need from you? What do you need from me? What are our biggest risks or opportunities? And mix in pairs people that haven't talked to each other yet. And move out, go into the nature, go into the park around, go to a different building. This rapidly clarifies interdependencies and gets people connected that haven't spoken to each other, for example. So this is an example for moving away from this type of long, passive information reception into something that more dynamic. What else? And when we have remote synchronous meetings, I think it's called the monthly consortium call or whatever. Usually there's a 60-minute call where one person shares their screen and talks through updates. And hey, cameras off. A few maybe connected to the cameras, and only a few key peoples ever speak, right?
Yep.
What if we move into focused interaction? Better practice. How do we make this focused interaction? So, hey, let's maybe use the technique of flipping the meeting approach. What does this mean? This is just a fancy name, but what it means is using synchronous time to present updates, send a concise update. Let's not do that. Updates are things that we can do on an email, we can do in the channel, if we have an application with a specific format, short and concise and clear. And when we get together, it's about discussing the blockers. It's about solving problems. It's about proposing a solution for the other one. It's about making a decision. So, for example, it's a way of focusing the interaction, or having a structured digital collaboration tool. So having the space, a place to go and solve a question. And you have a structure for that. And you have some blocks visually. Think of a mural or a board, digital board, where they're going to be discussing about a topic, and they have parts that are driving the process of that discussion and seeking for a solution. And it's structured in a way that in a given time, it will come out to a solution. You have to put time into that. And the same, an agenda. Have a rigorous agenda design. So when we are meeting synchronous, every agenda item should be a question to answer, not a topic to be discussed. This shifts the focus from reporting to problem solving, or even to celebration, to learning. We're not even going to be discussing topics or solving a problem. We want to celebrate, we want to learn. And you design that slot with that intention. So instead of, in the other case, update on Word Package 3, the agenda item is, how do we solve the partner recruitment delay with Word Package 3? And have a specific question, very clear, because we already detected this. For example. So these are the type of, let's say, better practices. If we have time for another one, I can give another one. So how do we do asynchronous collaboration? Meaning the work between meetings, because what is more observable and what we recall most of the time is when we get together, right, in the meetings. But most of the time, it's outside the meeting. So how the time between the meetings is representing the work culture, the collaboration style or culture that we need, that the project needs, and that we have, co-created. So, for example, move from having the typical chaotic mix of long email chains with many people in CC, or with documents passed around as attachments with confusing and version control, and even even if it's not to CC everyone, then it's siloed somewhere in an individual inbox with a few people that are missing. So, okay, let's set some rules of how we're going to do this. Or let's have a single source of truth model. Yeah, it's a better practice. How do we do this? A technique is classical, having a centralized project hub. So having some repository, having some platform to structure information and conversations. Obviously, this is depending on the consortium. It's always possible. It's not depending on the entities. They can access that platform or not. But, we found a way, even in the most simple ones. But to create that type of hub for everyone, make it accessible, have all official documents, decisions, show how it's used. Do spend a few minutes and let people move around. Yeah. That's one that is easy. And the other one, for example, another technique is task-oriented or objective-oriented, whatever makes most sense in the moment, communication. So shift the communication away from email and towards, a specific channel or thread dedicated to specific tasks or deliverables, for example. Instead of mailing about a deliverable, have the conversation in a dedicated channel in, I don't know if it's Teams. Usually, I think it's more open for like big organizations and universities. So, okay, if it's Teams, or as comments within a shared document. Why? This can be annoying for those that are not engaged usually and every day or most of the time in the project. Yeah? But for those that actually are doing the work, this keeps the context and the conversation together. So we need to create spaces, formats, where things can be oriented to what we want to happen in the communication. Or another technique, I said, single source of truth is, hey, very simple, regular, short, asynchronous updates. So institute a simply weekly, bi-weekly practice where each key person posts a short structured update. And you can even, create how it starts the phrase for everyone. Mm-hmm. Last week, this week, At the beginning, it's like, do I have to really follow this? And I have to write this like this way? Get into the exercise. This is like going to the gym. At the beginning, it hurts. It's annoying. You don't want to get out of your house and put the shoes and get the towel and, go into the gym. But as you practice and you get into it and you start, I don't know, doing your yoga course or lifting some weights, whatever is the thing that you do in the gym, it gets easier and it gets into a habit. So you have to create some techniques where people get into a habit, and it's the habit of our habit, how we do it together. Yeah? Why? This type of things maintain visibility and accountability without the need for a meeting. We don't need everything to happen in the meeting. So sharing information, just information for the sake of an update or so on, this is something that we don't need to spend at the same time the 1 hour time or 30 minutes or 2 hours, whatever it is, of everyone or most of the key people involved in the project. It's nuts. Yeah. So let's make simple things. Yeah, it will hurt a little bit annoying to change a bit of our habits, but hey, we're going to be involved in this project probably 2, 3, 4 years, with organization having quite some budget. Yeah, so it deserves the effort of making common habits, many things that we get used to. Yeah, and obviously has to be agreed. So these are the type of techniques. And so you seek for I want a single source of truth. So how do I make that? And you think of techniques basically. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think this is quite tangible, especially this part that you just shared with us, for everybody to reflect, and then you can reflect out there if this is your responsibility to deal with these kind of things. If you can take color of it, or maybe try to introduce some of it when you approach this next time you have to start up a project or start to think it through a little bit, these kind of things. So thanks, Monica.
If you want to make sense of the big, bright universe that is EU funding, listen to the podcast and start cracking.
Now, reflections and advice.
Yeah, reflection and advice.
Just summarizing a little bit. It's over. But now I guess you can actually say that you already gave the advice because you gave people some practical tools. But do you have some like summarizing a little bit core messages?
Yes, I'll be brief. So the thing is, when you look back at this, better practices and some examples of the techniques, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I was asking myself, what are the underlying principles? Yeah, because this is what guides you and allows you to be creative and choose this technique or another, or one principle to be agreed upon, a group of people working together. So the thing is, there's for me a few principles that come up. Yeah, one is design before you build,
Mm-hmm.
which basically means you would never build a complex physical structure without a detailed blueprint, right? So a consortium is like a complex social structure, and it requires the same intentional design before the real work begins. And even if you have a doubt or there's something that has changed in the context of the project now, because we are advancing and reality is showing up,
Mm-hmm.
there's no shame. The contrary, hey, we were doing this way. I think the conditions have changed and we need something else. So question that and be even open to change that, architecture that you have. Yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
before you build, for sure, and even on the way. Then the other principle is make the implicit explicit. So, and this has to do a lot with how we are humans. So the biggest sources of conflict that I see every time, yeah, in teams and organizations, the biggest sources of conflict are unstated assumptions about how we should communicate, why this is important, why this is not, how we make the decision, how we handle a disagreement. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is why I say, hey, let's create a project playbook, a set of rules guiding whatever, what is the minimal, or if you want to do more sugar, the sweeter, no, the more sugar, sweeter, great. Yeah, but at least a minimum. So it's not bureaucracy, it's a tool for freedom. Because this is like building the roads and putting the traffic lights and so on. You create those paths and those instructions and rules, but it allows people then to get their car or their bike and move around and get to where they have to get.
Mm-hmm.
That is what it does. Yeah. But we have a common understanding of how we drive through the city and through, even when we change countries, things change and you have to read again and make, the implicit. You have your own implicit from your country and you have to start learning there's a different way. So we have to make the implicit explicit. The other one is engineer serendipity. So don't just hope for good collaboration to happen in the coffee breaks and in the dinner in the evening. I hear very often and I understand it, yeah, but no, but we've done this many times, and he's seasoned in this type of work, and I've been leading teams so much time and so on, and they're adults. Now we're all grown-ups. Yeah, that's a lot to let just to serendipity, to chance. So you must create structures and processes that make valuable interactions inevitable. That it's a must. Yeah. So something like this minimal thing like work package speed dating might sound playful, but they are engineered to force the crucial cross-functional conversations that rarely happen on their own until it's too late. There's had to seek that people get together and connect at least once with people that usually they will probably not connect just by chance. And one more is moving from the contract. There's the plan, there's the legal stuff. Move from contract to commitment. So the grant agreement binds the organizations legally, but it doesn't create a team. It doesn't create a culture. So for me, the true success comes when partners move from fulfilling a contract and I have to be here, I've been assigned to this project and I have to cover this as a researcher because blah, okay. So from a contract to sharing a deep commitment to the project's mission. And this may sound like fluffy, and no, it isn't. Actually, people do want to do something that's worth it, want to contribute. That's in human nature. So this was the entire goal of the Dynamic Lifeline. So the process was designed to create the we project feeling. With when we asked, also we did get feedback and understanding how it was landing and so on. It was a 4.8 out of 5 score, because the contract was clear. Yeah, wasn't clear, but because from the contract we moved to that commitment that became shared, and this is it. Yeah, you really we don't have to take things for granted. At the end, that's the reflection and the advice. Yeah, so really do dare to question, do dare to dedicate the time.
Yeah. Thanks.
You're welcome.
The Grand. We reached the end. But we just missed the segment that I always have in all my episodes, the toughest challenge. So, what is the toughest challenge?
Shifting the belief system. So,
of course,
the ingrained beliefs. We don't have time for this. I assure you, it's an investment, not a cost. Investing 20 hours now in the sign up front saves you, I don't know, and 200 hours of crisis management later. Yeah, and having to discuss with the PO and discussing with partners, it's worth it. Obviously, it's not a guarantee. Hey, I'm not telling this is all in perfect and super easy. No, it's hard work. But really don't buy into this. We don't have time for this. Not true. This is worth it and it makes sense. The other is we know best. And here, hey, even the most experienced experts like you, team research services, which are really good, yeah, they did dare to pose the question and see how can we grow, how can we do things differently, what else is there? Because they recognize that the growing project complexity and the market, yeah, how it's growing and so on, it requires an evolution in our collaborative methods. That's it. And we aren't born knowing everything. It's already hard to be an expert in your field now, in whatever you're doing in the project. This is something that we are not naturally learning. Not in our education system, not in the job very often. No, it's very few organizations that do have this insight. So this is our ingrained beliefs, yeah, that are actually hindering us. It's not the budget. It's not the project plan is set up in this way and we're going to change this. It's not we've always done this way, the kickoff should be this way, or the consortium meeting. It's not true. Another ingrained belief is you cannot influence the partners from other organizations. It's true we don't have formal authority and we don't have, a salary system that we can, raise the salary, but that, for example, just it's a short-term impact. But we do have more powerful leadership levers, collaboration levers, shared purpose, co-creation, and real impact. These are the ones that drive people long-term.
Mm-hmm.
And this is not only me saying this is research. Yeah? So in a well-designed consortium, we can provide all those things in abundance, especially because we are working together for a mission, that it's that impact and there's that purpose, which is far more motivating than any traditional corporate organizational incentive. So it's about really, disconnecting a bit these beliefs. That's really the toughest challenge when, I have the initial conversations. There's a few that get it immediately, but obviously it's a group now of people working together. So when we are starting to propose these changes, like, we've done this, don't have the time. And it's okay, I understand, because you have to really listen to that. We have a lot to do. Our attention is limited. We are drained now in our jobs, and we get that. We know that, yeah. Mm-hmm. But this is not allowing us to see further, yeah. So, okay, you think you don't have time for this right now. It's probably true for you, but set aside, stop that thought freeze that thought for a moment.
Yeah. And on that note, that's what you should take with you out there, because this is obviously the most challenging thing. That is what is in people's head, and changes those patterns. So indeed, Monica, thank you so much for coming and sharing this. I'm just going to land this plane before we say goodbye to the listeners. So, dear listeners, I hope that you indeed have enjoyed this as much as I, to dig into how to better collaborate in the projects that you are implementing. If you like this, you have, first of all, you have the implementation series, where I step by step try to dig into each corner of what you have to do when you implement the project. You have also tons of other content on my site, thegrant.eu. There's at this stage probably more than 190 episodes of all kinds of content within EU R&D funding. Not everything within your specific interest, but I have categorized it. So I've done that as a favor for you. So you can go to the website, thegrant.eu. You can go to the podcast platform, podcast universe, as I call it. And there you will have categories, buttons in the top, where you can go and find your specific area of your interest. Now, you are in there and you say, wow, what a fantastic platform. I want to support this. And yes, I had good news for you. You can do that. You can go at the bottom of the site and you can subscribe to my email list. And that's the best way you can support an independent podcaster as myself. So thank you in advance for that. Finally, of course, connect with me on LinkedIn. That's where the fun happens. That's where the flow is. Niels Tudor Winter, find me. I'm the only one in the world with this name. It shouldn't be difficult. and then also go and like my The Grant page. That's where I try to channel a lot of my information as I move on. So if you connect there, you can't miss anything from my side. So, so do that. I will also, on the episode site for this, each episode has its own website on my website, so you can go to this website with this episode, and you can there will be a link to Monica's LinkedIn site. There are also going to be a link to her company. Yeah, that's it, Monica. Thank you so much.
Thanks to you, Niels.
It's been a pleasure.
A real pleasure.
Let's say goodbye to the dear listeners. Bye.
Bye-bye. And remember, stop managing projects and start building teams.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Grant. All the Grant episodes have their own site on the Grant website. You'll find the link to the episode notes where you listen to your podcast. On the page for this episode, you'll find a link to Monica's LinkedIn profile. And of course, you'll find a link to the implementation series overview if you'd like to explore more episodes on how to implement your projects. Next week, I have a great episode coming up. I have managed to get Florine and Goda from Science Business into the virtual podcast studio and share their insights, or as much as they can share, about the status of the FP10 process. You can indeed look forward to that.